I'm going to show you a graphic and you tell me what you think this graphic is about. The blue is Barcelona, the red is Manchester United. Any idea? No? That is the number of first team minutes played by recently promoted academy graduates between 2020 and 2026. And I chose this period in particular because I think if you look within these periods, that's when, now it's not 2026, like maybe 2024 to 2020, that's when Barcelona and Manchester United have been really similar. I think many could argue that Manchester United will have actually been better than Barcelona during that period. So why on earth, right, Barcelona in the position they are in and Manchester United are not? I believe it has strongly to do with the production line of the academy. If Barcelona didn't have La Masia, they would have been finished because they were suffering and they were dying, and then God sends them Lamine Yamal, he sends them Pau Kubasi, he sends them Fermin Lopez, he sends them Alejandro Balde, he sends them Gavi, he sends them everybody, like what have you, he sends it to them. And that got me thinking, wow, those are some really lucky guys. And then I thought to myself, are they lucky or did they create their own luck, right? Obviously, we know the issues La Liga has with all their financial trouble and their one-to-one, whatever that thing means. I have no idea. And I genuinely don't have any interest in knowing what it is. But clearly, Barca have had to rely on their academy. They have had to, like it's been a necessity for them. But what you do realize is that Barcelona, they don't just chuck guys into the first team. Almost everybody they've given first team minutes to are ready. So that tells me that they have a proper player development schedule, and it's represented in their first team minutes played at the football club. And you might argue that, Barca are in a much better position as compared to Manchester United in a less competitive league. And so getting academy players to play these games are a lot easier. But Barcelona play in only like basically 3 competitions a season. Manchester United play in 4. I don't think it's crazy to say that we could have used round 3-4 of the FA Cup and Carabao Cup to develop your younger players. That's not ridiculous to say, right? Because it gets crazier. When you look at the number of academy graduates who've played a certain number of minutes again within this time frame, it gets exceedingly worse. So the number of individual players who've played between over 2,000 minutes for both clubs, right? Barcelona stands at 9, United stand at 4. And then you go to the number of players who've played about 5,000 minutes. And guess what? Barcelona has 6, United have 2. Within those 2, that's Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo. Garnacho has already left. So we have only 1 player who's played more than 5,000 minutes since 2020 from the academy. Barcelona have 6. Quite a few of them are still at the club. Again, then we take it up a notch and move to 10,000. We could have moved to 8,000. Kobbie Mainoo still would have gotten there. But we moved to 10,000, and of course, there's no Man United player in there, and then there's 4 Barca players, right? So it's the big 4 that we all know about in Barcelona. And aside from that, the minutes, what you realize is that Barca also use the academy to generate money for themselves consistently. Now, it's nothing to write home about because in this period, Manchester United have actually made more from sales from academy products that have been in the first team. One thing I would like to point out is that I did not include players who didn't get their first team opportunity within 2020. So some players we sold without them ever getting like a chance, like Alvaro Fernandez and the likes. Isaac Carrington, I think that's his name, also is not in this list because he didn't play a competitive game for Manchester United. But yeah, when you look at all of that, right, Barca are able to generate fees consistently. And aside from that, right, aside from the fact that they are able to consistently generate good transfer fees for these guys, right, moderate to reasonable amount of transfer fees. The guys that they choose not to sell, who remain integral parts of their team, are very good. They develop those guys well enough to the extent that even though you hadn't heard of them before, they end up becoming mainstays in the team. Fermin Lopez was not hyped at all when he was coming through La Masia, but here he is. Chelsea wanted to buy him for 70 million. Pau Kubasi, I think he was like quite hyped up. I think people did believe in his ability, but he has exceeded what people expected from him. Alejandro Balde is also similar. His injury issues have worried him, and Lamine is Lamine, so we don't even have to talk about him. But when you look at the transfer fees recorded, right, Barca have managed to again be very savvy with it, right? Nico Gonzalez, currently at Man City, left Barca for 21 million to Porto. Elias Moriba, 21. I think his was 16 million. So they produce fees like that. Generally, a lot of their better academy players go for 5 million and above. But for us, Hannibal Mejibri is going for change. And apart from that, and I also find it really interesting that our senior academy players, right, who ended up being mainstays in the first team, commanded very good figures. Anthony Elanga, who indeed got us like a buyback clause again, buyback clause money, sell-on clause money, not buyback clause, and you get what was this lad called? Alejandro Garnacho, 50 million, and you also get the likes of Dean Henderson, also commanding a respectable figure, right? Those three were 82% of the transfer fees from, again, this list that I've put out, right, within these 6 years. So it should tell you that, like, we should genuinely just trust our academy more, than we should give them more minutes in a setting. Of course, we've had our own topsy-turbulent time, but I think that this is the time that we need to buckle down as Manchester United and decide that we are literally going to ensure that we give everybody the chance they need to grow and develop into players who can actually help the team. Because again, I this is something that I feel really strongly about. Manchester United should have never sold James Garner. Manchester United should have never sold Alvaro Fernandez. And Manchester United, I don't think we're in the position to be selling Harry Amas, because all this makes me think about is what's going to happen in the future to Diego Leon, what's going to happen to the other guys, because it seems like every 2 windows, right, we sign somebody who is the next everything. We sign the next Roberto Carlos, we sign the next Paul Scholes, we sign the next Dimitar Berbatov, and then in 2 years they are all sold for an undisclosed fee to Luton Town or Birmingham City. We can't keep doing that, right? And the best way to not do that is to actually ensure that these guys have a pathway to their first team, or we are able to raise their value substantially enough to be able to get better figures for them. And in turn, it helps us. Look at Man City, look at the model they've got going on, right? They are able to command fees of all kinds for their players because their players are just that good, and everybody knows they are that good because they came from that academy. Right, so because look at Barca again, if they didn't have Yamal, they would have probably had to splurge on a winger like they have with Anthony Gordon. If they didn't have Kubasi, they would have had to splurge on two centre backs, right? You look at again Gavi, not really Gavi, but you get what I'm saying, right? They do tend to be very good at turning players, whether they have been hyped or not, into very, very good acquisitions for the club. But one thing I would like to say is that let's not think too much about it, in the sense that it's not all doom and gloom, right? I think we have one of the best coaches for possibly promoting the younger players into the fold, right? Michael Carrick is one guy who knows what it's about to be at Manchester United. And he was a fantastic footballer who relied on his brain, right? And I think if you look at the best coaches, right, a lot of them were players who, like, they thought a lot with their games. They were not necessarily physical attribute monsters. No offense to Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard, but I personally think that that's why they are not the best coaches necessarily. Lampard is good at smaller clubs where he's punching above his weight, because again, if you're a physical player, that's really where you're going to shine in streets won't forget. I'm sorry, but yeah, but we trust Carrick's talent ID, and he knows what it's about, right? He can spot these guys at a mile away. I'm really happy with the fact that it looks like Shea Lacey is going to be given a good go at it this year. JJ Gabriel also is an exciting one coming through. Chido Obi looks like he might still have to go through the under 21s a little bit, right? But you look at the likes of Aiden Heaven, and I do feel like there is a lot of good that can come from this. So from this academy set. So let's try to be a little positive about the outlook, right? You have the Fletcher brothers who are also still yet to come in. Ethan Wheatley is also still there. Again, I know some of the names I'm mentioning are not necessarily inspiring a lot of confidence, but I feel like there are a lot of players in there, and I just hope that again we'll be able to solve this problem and actually develop these guys to the level that they should be at. Peace.